Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so excited to have Natasja Pelgrom with us here today. Hey, Natasja, thanks for being here.
Hello. Thank you for your invitation. So excited.
I am so excited to talk to you and share your work with everyone. So I'll tell you a little bit about Natasja. Natasja is a devoted creative and visionary whose life's work is to lead spiritual experiences that support others in their journey of healing and transformational growth. Natasja is the founder of Awaken the Medicine Within retreats and online program. She is a highly intuitive guide and has held training, assisting, and facilitation roles in over 800 psychedelic ceremonies. She has also advised and curated healing programs for other psychedelic wellness companies. Natasja continues to teach empowerment workshops and has developed an online psychedelic integration and self love program. One of her latest successes is the launch of the Awaken podcast, where she has dedicated her voice to the series Women in Psychedelics. Oh, I love it. Natasja, let's hear your story. First of all, thank you so much for featuring women in psychedelics. I try to feature a lot of women because many years ago when I entered into this space in a business role, it was definitely dominated by men. So thank you for that. But yeah, let's hear your story. How did you end up on this path? And, what was your upbringing and your career path that brought you to where we are today?
Yes, and I could go all the way back to 1979 when I was born, but I will skip that part of my birth. But I do want to start that way back because that will give a lot of answers, why I chose certain things on in this work and my dedication and my focus. One of the things that I discovered very quickly, and I think all children have that, is this innate sense of intuitive ability, and some can really see, sense, feel. And I was really one of those children. And a lot of the times what I was discovering was what the adults or society was projecting back to me did not make sense. Not at all. And one of the things, but I knew I had this inside knowing, this intuitive knowing that I needed to look for answers or find a coherence elsewhere. Therapy at a very young age didn't work. First of all, not saying that it doesn't work for anybody, but still today I'm still in supervision with a therapist. But at that time, the things that really resonated were energy work, shamanism, also meditation. Zen Buddhism was something that I stepped in a very young age. So all of these practices came in, including psychedelics. So I think my first experience was when I was 14. It wasn't intentional. It was absolutely recreational. But that was actually the first seed, because there were nuggets of gifts given to me in that journey that even till 3-4 years ago, I finally understood what was given. So sometimes it takes a lifetime for one journey to unpack. So just for the people that want to go fast, go slow. But so that's been my path. So simultaneously, I've also been very entrepreneurial and very grounded, a very clear spiritual connection, and also very curiosity. And in that entrepreneurial space, at the age of 29, I had already a hospitality business for about 5 years. And this was a place where for rising talent, and it was a club and a bar and a gallery and a shop and all in one. And I was literally 29 in a male dominated environment, because that's what hospitality and entertainment is. But I had a lot of fun. It was amazing. And, life also, besides the fact that I, was in a very always developing consciously and always putting practice and understanding that, because that was just something I needed, I also developed very much escapism and egoic structures, like all of us. So I've had for a few years quite a codependent relationship with some substances and alcohol. And until I turned 33, and I literally, it was like time stood still in that moment. I was at the peak of my business, literally having amazing drag shows around me and with amazing dances on the bar. And I was just standing, and there was this voice inside of me, Natasja, is this what you're going to do at 40? And then I was like, no. And literally that weekend, I managed to call up a few people and I sold everything. And a few months later, I was out. So that was a very big shift, like I'm a Leo for my star sign. So there's a lot of fire. So when the decision is made, we go. Yeah. So that's like, so that was really a path, immediately. So in 2012, that was when my real transition, there was a deep awakening there because of the healing I needed to do in codependency of substances, but also in relationship. So my big awakening and my big pain and that realization was through this pain, was reconnecting to my trauma and actually taking care of myself, realizing that my upbringing had a lot more influence, although I had a healing path my whole life, it was only till then that I needed to embrace it. So that was the big shift. And because of my background already with coaching and, learning a traditional way of working, because I wanted it, in 2013, it went like a snowball. As super fast, I was literally having phone calls with people like, hey, I know that you're really good at coaching. Can I come over? I was like, yeah, sure. And that's how it started. So, and then I basically launched workshops, started guiding meditations in my living room. I had to start all over. The business I had sold, when I say I sold the business, people think, oh, it must have been a lot of money. No, I was literally living off 10 euros a week, and I had to do a stupid job because I had to rework myself. And this is where medicines came back on my path, and I'm half Portuguese, half Dutch. So in the Netherlands, we have truffles with psilocybin. So it's an easy access. And of course, I already had a lot of education around. Ayahuasca came on my path and it became just like a beautiful gift, one gift after another, because I had committed to my own healing and my own ancestral healing too. Not only my own, but my ancestral healing. So, and the most fun thing I think about me being in this realm and facilitating and being someone's ally and guide in this space is that I actually started with supporting people with integration. So I was already working a lot with intuition and working a lot with shamanistic tools, working with neurolinguistic programming, and people were coming more and more on my path, challenges out of DMT experiences and ayahuasca experiences. That was the majority. So this was about 2013, 14, more or less. And that to me, so I had actually a lot of judgment. I was like, that's not going to be my path. People have no idea what they're doing. Not that I knew at the time, but I was like, whoa, these people are effed up. They're upside down all around. What is happening in this space? So to me, I see it spirit, a creative source just got me a massive gift of learning the difficulties first. And when my ex-partner had done 5-MeO DMT multiple times, he said, Natasja, this is so for you. This is your space. He had done that with a beautiful woman that we probably both know, and I don't want to name because I don't know how public she wants to be.
Yeah, we probably both know her. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to honor that, but I almost wanted to say her name. So, and he had amazing work, and he's like, wow, this woman, Natasja, you could have been her sister. You guys are so alike. This is your space. And I was like, really, really? And I was like researching 5-MeO, what he was talking about. And I was at that time very much, which I am still today, I believe everything is already inside of us. It's connecting mind, body. It's connecting heart, mind. It's the willingness to see our shadow and all of those practices. So for me, it was like, well, is this a bypass using this medicine? Shouldn't we go at our own pace? Like I had all these questions and I had a lot of judgment. And when judgment comes up, it's the invitation to meet it, isn't it? So I knew okay, I got to do this medicine. I had, contacts in the psychedelic space and of course, and, some really beautiful space holders that I personally had experience. And I asked around, do you know a good carrier of the 5-MeO medicine? And there were 3 people that guided me to the same person. His name was Enrique. He's from Mexico. And at the time he was coincidentally in Europe. So we have a phone call. We had some text messages and we have a phone call, and he picks up the phone and I say, hi. And the first thing that comes out of my mouth, I'm looking for a teacher. And I'm like, what did I just say? And I was like, no, I'm not. I never done it. So but that was just my open truth, which surprised me. So that
Wow.
was the beginning of my path was like that. Try to keep it quick and swift, so it's comprehensive, but there is so much in there, you know?
Oh, I love it. Your
Yeah.
path is so similar to mine, and I love it because I'm also a fire sign. I'm a Sag sun and a Leo moon. But yeah, you
Amazing.
know, that path of starting with the recreational use of psychedelics and then the codependency of alcohol and, you know, drugs, you know, what I called
Yeah.
drugs back when I did drugs and alcohol to numb and
Yeah.
escape and avoid life, and, you know, created these unhealthy relationships within myself and brought me into this downward spiral. And then, of course, there was that one moment of like, is this what my life is going to be in 20 years? Like, is this where I'm headed? And just like, same thing. Like by 2013, it was like everything was just exponential, you know, like exponential growth from that point on. So I love this. And I love how, you know, something as powerful as the toad medicine came to you in this really synchronistic way. Which is kind of what happened for me as well, where, you know, it landed in my lap, kind of like ayahuasca landed in my lap. I was like, yeah, I'd heard of it, but I never thought I would
Yeah.
even do it. You know, it was like, nah, that's that thing you go to prove for, but then there it is.
Exactly.
But let's
Yeah.
dive a little deeper into this. You know, you'd mentioned working with a female carrier of the medicine, and, you know, someone really holding this space quite well. And I know, you know, we actually probably do know a lot of the same people, but when I was introduced to it many years ago, it was like there was just one person I knew, and thank God
Yeah.
she was a woman, and I actually still am very close with her, and she held the space with really, really high integrity. But of course, fast forward to many years later, nowadays, I didn't even realize this until last year, where people are just kind of doing this all over the place, and, you know, in kind of weird groups, and, you know, like casually, and these kind of just come in and do it and come out. I was actually in Mexico and saw in Tulum last year a sign on a door, like advertising it, like, call me on
No.
WhatsApp. And I was like, whoa. So let's talk a little bit about this space of, you know, facilitation of these really powerful medicines. Like, what is your advice to people who either want to do it or who want to get into facilitation when it comes to, you know, this is like no joke
Yeah.
medicine here.
Yeah, I mean, no, one of the things that I personally refer to is from, you know, I've worked a lot with therapists, you know, as colleagues, as peers, you know, in supporting roles. And one of the things that I do appreciate about that structure is they do an oath of do no harm. And, you know, it's like the highest thing that someone can give to you is their trust, from human to human. And, you know, that responsibility weighs to me so heavy, you know, because it's the same thing when you are a doctor, or you don't know what's in that person. You know, it doesn't matter. Even people that have been working with these medicines their whole life, they would never claim they were born into structure, maybe working with the medicine. You know, I'm a baby in it. I still have moments literally where I go like, what was this? You know, and because of that, you need to be so careful, because you don't know uh, the body, you don't know their mind, you don't know their past, you don't know their intergenerational trauma. You have no idea. So to me, it would always be step number one: how willing are you how willing are you to go deep yourself? Are you willing to go and meet all the nooks and crannies? And it doesn't have to be every single day. That's not sustainable at all. We don't have to. And there's also something to be said about that, about the amount of time, you know, in terms of the quality that you take out of it. But still, that to me is crucial. And you can't fast forward that learning. You know, it takes, there are many people that I know that I have a lot of admiration and respect for. They say you work with one medicine and it takes a lifetime, you know, and there is a reason for saying that. There is a reason to understand it in that way. And so your self path, you have to find teachers there where you're an absolute beginner. So you understand the humbleness of the work of being a student. That to me is key. It's number one. And then you need to have someone that is actually able to tell you no. Who are you surrounding yourself with? So those are important to me, very important things. Do no harm, see the responsibility, and not only for the individual, because sometimes I personally get requests from people that have contraindications. And one of the things that I share with them is it's not only about you, but it's also about me. And then it's also not about me, but it's also about the ecosystem. Because if something would happen between my facilitation and your process, and it would get in the headlines, then there's a lot of people that have finally, from years working in the underground, who are now dare to speak up, suddenly are being squashed down again with all the other amazing organizations. I don't think it's perfect at all at the moment, but at least we're trying, with our human frailties, right? We're trying. So, and I think when we bring in this understanding of the responsibility you're taking on, can you truly say that you are ready after a weekend of quote unquote training? Is that true? Am I going to teach yoga after a weekend? No, and so why would that be any different? And the same goes for, counseling and therapy. There is years that go by. And to me, I think my own path is literally, it begun way before that. And the ambition was never there. For me, personally, I never had the ambition to work with this. It became one of the many tools. And one thing I've always personally known is I need people around that are coming from different directions who can give me feedback, who I can reflect with, who I respect, who are maybe from a whole different line. I have people that advising me who have nothing to do with psychedelics, right? Who ask me a question where I go like, oh yeah, that's a good one. So and right now there is a lot more possibility. But when you and I were in that space and started, like you said, there was one female with Tricia Eastman. And I remember seeing a workshop online, which was recorded, or one podcast of her. And I was like, oh, this is a woman speaking about this medicine, and I had only experience with men, nothing wrong with men, but they hold a different type of space. And I felt very lonely in that space of, I don't think this is my way, but I couldn't find anybody else to teach me what is my way then.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought up this ecosystem, concept. And because I've said this before too. I was like, look, it is for your own safety. It is for the safeties of the facilitator. But all it takes is one very public incident to ruin it for everybody, and we've already started to see some of this, and I'm like, oh, you guys, stop sharing the one, I saw something last week on Instagram, son gets, finds bag of psilocybin, accidentally eats it. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I was like,
I was like, how much was in that bag, first of all? That was my first question. Like, that's a big bag.
Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, unfortunately, stupid things do happen, but, we don't need to have a bad situation that ruins it for a lot of the underground facilitators, because the reality is, the underground are amazing people doing great work. Yeah. And there are definitely some people maybe doing dangerous work. And I've even, I told Natasja before this interview, I've even had a client who said he was going to one of these like weekend long trainings. And I said, like, you have to really ask yourself if you're truly qualified to hold that space, especially considering the amount of, trauma that people might have. You have to have a very detailed intake process, because then you are potentially doing harm, so, but let's talk about this a little more, about this holding space as a facilitator, men versus women. It is interesting. I'm personally going through this right now with my own curandero, who I've been working with for many years in Peru. He's a man. He's amazing. I mean, it's a very masculine space. His icaros are very masculine. And I've now been led to a woman who has been in my field for many years, who's also a Peruvian curandera. And I'm like, oh, yes, like this, I can totally feel the difference in the energy. It's like, very masculine versus very feminine, and there is no right or wrong in that space, but it's more like, okay, well, what do I need right now in my life? Like, what's the right energy for what I'm going through? But yeah, when it comes to the kind of work you've seen and that you've been supervising, what are your views on this, like, especially with something like 5-MeO DMT, like masculine versus feminine, or people holding large groups versus one-on-one?
Yeah. Well, and this is a topic which I really, really love, and it's still growing. So, for me, it's also something that I'm still in a process of becoming aware. What is that? So it could be that in a week time, if you ask me the same question, I might answer
Yeah.
something else. you know, but yeah, one of the things that I noticed. So to honor really my teacher, because if it wasn't for his cowboy style of working, I wouldn't have had the pressure cooker of learning. So I'm also very much aware of that style of, we're doing 10 people a day, 5 days in a row, like, and going for it. And, and I wouldn't even think of that right now. I was like, oh my God, no, thank you. Thank you very much. But I went, we traveled and I did it. And that gave me the teaching that I now feel confident to be able to hold that space. So that being said, I speak with him on a very regular basis, and we always compare notes in a way to say, okay, what is that difference? Now, interesting enough, we had a call yesterday, and he asked me, like, how many people do you have that are actually challenged with sleeping afterwards? This was one question. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, for me, there is a lot of people. And then I immediately said, well, what are you doing with the dose? Are you doing 1, 2, or 3? And he said, like, yeah, but when people really want more, I give them more. And that to me was like a little alarm bell, where I then replied back, well, because how I hold that container, I work in 5 days. So we build it up, and we build it up with a diet. We build it up with plant bath, with a dieta, with an actual plant bath. We work energetically. So we're working already on what is muddy, quote unquote, in the person. So we're really about cleaning the full system. You just read a beautiful bio and it says all these beautiful titles about myself, which I thought of, great. But in the end of the day, if I'm really truthful, I'm a cleaner. I'm a spiritual doula that is responsible to clean the space, the set and setting, myself, the other, the group. I need to consistently make it clean. So the innate healing capacity can take place of the individual, right? And the cleaner you are, the most beautiful thing happens is that you start to trust. The deeper you trust, the deeper you surrender, the deeper it becomes an allyship where you're collaborating with the medicines in that way. And, and then I've seen that collaboration brings in the depth, and people leave complete without any physical, mental, or emotional, or spiritual misalignment. Doesn't mean that happened every time. Of course, I've also had variations of this, but that's already an example of a case study of things that I notice in terms of where his cowboy style, masculine of give more here, and while they're not out of the medicine, he will bring the pipe and give even more. I've seen those facilitations too, where I go like, what? Which to me, the beauty of the moment is the moment of coming back in silence, without any interruption, without any sacred song. Nature around, and coming back in silent space where the space holders are in deep compassion for you and with you. And that silence and that integration moment is where the gifts of awe and gratitude and humbleness come in. And this is, to me, where the magic of the mystical experience then unfolds, because then suddenly Earth becomes a mystical experience and not the other realm, So, like, yeah, I could go even further, but I think this is about to give you an example about male-female way of maybe approaching.
I love that. And I love it. It's this path of like simplicity. It's funny. I intentionally worked with 5-MeO this summer, or last summer, 2021, for the first time in 4 years. Cause I actually was like, I don't know if I ever need that again in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how potent the first time I did it was. But I chose to go in with an extremely small dose
Yeah.
and to stay very present the entire time. And to exactly that, like at one point I was sitting in the blaring hot, I think it was July sun, and it was like, and I just like had this moment of reverence for the sun, and it's so simple. I'm like, wait, this is our
Yeah.
life. Like this is heaven on earth, and not the escapism to the other realms, which I do believe that, 5-MeO is a beautiful healing medicine, but I have seen more and more people that are just seeking that peak experience
Yes.
over and over, because of course, like, it feels so good when you come back, come out of it and you're like, all is, all is well and all is one and all is love. And I'm like, but we have that available within us at all times, medicine or not. Like, we don't need the medicine.
Go
It's
have an
there.
orgasm.
So yeah, I know exactly that too. I'm
It's
like,
right there.
it's available to us all the
Yeah, and I
time.
love what you're saying, because that small dose, I would love to add something to that. So when some of my
Yeah.
clients have come multiple times and they're able to hold the medicine more, their very last dose is an integration dose where they need to sit up and they get a smaller dose and to really work with the medicine. And that sense of resilience and empowerment, instead of something happening to you, for the nervous system and the psyche, has been an extremely beautiful process where people really felt, okay, I'm complete now with this medicine. So that what you just said is something that I actually really bring in as a part of a protocol almost. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I personally believe that's where all psychedelics are heading in eventually, where it's like, the more people are working with them, the more people dive in. I think eventually it brings you to this place of like, wait, I don't actually need them anymore, like, because we are so able to tap in to that exact, awareness, that exact feeling, that exact space, or even like, communing with plants just by developing a relationship, completely
Absolutely.
sober. You can have a psychedelic experience.
And that's why these traditional trainings, even from energy work or, curanderismo, or, there is all these trainings give you that relational space. And I think one of the pluses that I've experienced is that I already had that training. So I had the training of to sit next to a tree and to look and to feel its qualities and to go into a right relationship through the spirit, through the divine, through, the great mystery, whatever word, is for you, and then open up that channel and commune in that way. And you learn that right relationship. So right now, even with, for example, with psilocybin, when I'm holding a ceremony, I can just take a little bit and I feel the frequency shifting completely. And it's like, I don't need that much in that way. I mean, I do go for my own inner healing and being guided by people that I respect and admire, who know more than me. It's for me to always be a student, but when I'm holding that space, it's just a matter of what is that process. When you have a high dose, there is a process that takes place, and everybody's received in their own way their process. So, and then it's a matter of, okay, how do you then lean into that space? Because there's also a very big, one of the questions that I'm curious about your perspective on this is, I have also one of the questions I receive a lot. Do you think people need to take the medicine or don't? In the space. And of course, because the trainings are, so Western structure, academically structure, it comes off unethical to do it. But actually, it's unethical to not do it in a way,
I know,
because you're not using your own energy. You're not using your own egoic structure. You're having the medicine guide you where healing needs to take place or a shift needs to happen in the energy field. So not to say that I'm always in on the medicine. So I'm just saying, there is a middle ground, I believe. But that part of that education is something that I think is also needed for people to fully understand. And you only understand it if you experience it.
I agree. I know it's come up a lot where it's like, well, can someone be a psychedelic assisted therapist without really working with psychedelics? And I'm like, to me, it's just, it just makes sense. Like, well, why, first of all, how are you really going to know what it's like if you haven't done a fair share of your own experience to understand what your client is going through, or what, how the process works, or how the medicine is bringing up the trauma that the person's come to heal. So yeah, I do believe that, there's a certain level of like needing your own experience to understand and to relate, to be in that space of relating, like, oh, okay, yeah, I've been here before. It's like, it's like
Yes.
integration. Like, you have to have done your own integration in order to help people through their integration. Otherwise, like, how do you even know what it's like? And I know I actually went through this back when I first started working with ayahuasca a long time ago. I was seeing a therapist who had never even heard of it. And we couldn't go on any longer. It got to the point where I was like, I need to talk to someone about this, like someone who's done it before. And so I found someone else who actually works with medicine, who helped me really make the most of the experience and integrate it, which is where we get the real healing. It's not so much in that 5-hour space, it's in what happens afterwards, and how it, processes in your life, and how you can learn from it and bring it back and integrate it. That's the whole point. But actually, let's talk about this a little, because I know you help, you have a lot of therapists and people maybe wanting to step into this space. I'm curious, especially being in Europe, what is how have things changed over the years? Like, is there more and more interest, or people wanting to start offering this to their clients? Like, what's happening on, from your perspective when it comes to this whole like underground psychedelic assisted healing or therapy?
I think it's a worldwide thing right now, and what I am beautifully happy about is that there is this interest. Let's start with that, and that it is. I do believe it's absolutely far from perfect. The whole system of how do you bridge a part that as a society, because I don't even think about not alone about psychedelics or plant medicines, but as a society, we've ignored the intuitive, which is the yin energy, So of course that shadow aspect of that is going to come into this realm too. So this is the one thing that I'm observing personally. Okay, how can I contribute generatively into the space and educate people in the way and invite them to experience it? Because once you've experienced it, and it is not me and you telling them, So what I do have is a lot of people that need therapy, counselors that are coming on the path that are wanting to do this work, and and then are needing guidance of how do I do this. And then there is the downside of it is that these people have studied a lot in their lives. They've invested a lot of finances to be having these 3 letters behind your name. I'm in awe for that, because I didn't have that patience, to do that when I was young. I was in a different mojo there. But so I have a lot of respect and reverence for that dedication of wanting to heal. And in a way, they are healers too. It's just we don't have maybe other avenues. And that's is what I see, especially a lot with female therapists, that the initial is actually the healer. They're actually more plant medicine women than they've might be admitted, until they start to realize, wow, my grandmother used to do this and this. I always wanted this with my, so these things start to waken up, these feminine qualities in a way. And so in the way of working with this, and I'm seeing in this realm and more people, what is happening is the importance of actually giving people experience. So this has been my focus. I do have one-on-one mentoring with people. I only have a very small group because it takes a lot of time. I've more and more people are asking for apprenticeship, and that's normal. I don't think I'm personally ready for that, because that's a really big dedication. I've just have a new teacher in my life, so I want to be a student for a while again. So these things, I think you need to be ready, and an apprenticeship is a lifelong commitment. And the thing is that energetically, what I have experienced, and I know that if you have the understanding of dietas and plant baths, the moment your teacher opens up a plant bath and you do not obey the rules, the energy goes back to your teacher. And this is what people don't fully understand is, when in the energetic realm. But that being said, I do mentor people. I do have that space. And then what I always invite people to do is to actually experience different type of setups, experience with people and elders from traditions that are far from yours. So because the academic mind is so intellectually pumped in and you're such a level, it's really hard not to come in with putting that to side. So what you want to do is actually step into something you don't know anything about. And luckily there's so many beautiful foundations, NGOs, people right now online offering connections with elders. There are a lot more elders being open to facilitate or correct. Like 10 years ago, really hard for me to find. Like I didn't even know where to start. Like it was just different. And there's just a lot more right now. And then I always try to bring in my own retreats, work with people that have actually been 10 plus year trained in a specific tradition and people to experience that, because I know what I personally am good at is I can bridge language. I can bridge the academic realm with the spiritual realm, because I actually think they're both the same. They're just speaking a different language. It's a different dialect, So that place, and then bringing in a ceremonial lead that is experienced in a tradition where people are experienced, but then they still have, let's say, the compassionate space of, how do I now translate this into my system, into my life? The cognitive practices that are needed, especially in integration and preparation around that experience. So yeah, this is a bit where I see where, at this very moment, and probably, but I think a lot of people will also start to drop off in a way, because the online programs, which are beautiful, and there are many, with all the good intentions, people are not learning how. So, and what they will see is the moment they do think they're ready, they will understand that they don't know what the how is. And then the medicine will kick your butt, because, you will be absolutely exhausted for a week and crying and no idea what happened to you. Because you're in that space, and because right. So I think people will. I think that wave will also start to shift in a certain direction, and we're probably going to hear other voices of other experiences of this wave of everybody now wanting to be this. I don't know. Maybe it's also part of an egoic structure of the popularity. I'm going to be on a bandwidth of, like the chefs were popular, the DJs were popular. Now it's the space holders, the shaman. Everybody wants to be one. Like, so I think there is also this part, in all its beauty of the development and all its shadow in it. I think it's just part of the unfolding. And I'm always I'm just invited to stay in my own little realm and keep what I can do and aligned. And if I can't manage something, I don't do it. I'm very careful, because I like my free time. I like to close my eyes at night and go to bed and be not worried about anything. That's the biggest gift of harmony of life, Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you bring this up, and you also mention kind of this holistic way of seeing it, which I actually agree completely. I was actually just talking to a friend last night about this, about how the conversation around energy is left out of so many of these, trainings, or even like the coaching realm, or the kind of general healing realm. It's like, unless you're actually like in that and understand energy as an energy healer, a lot of people leave out these other aspects of this work. The work is not take a mushroom, lay down, and voila, you're healed. I mean, it's like, it's so much deeper than that. And it's exactly what you just said. There's a lot to learn, and there's different traditions, there's different ways. There's also different aspects of understanding the spirit of the plants and the energetics behind it, and what's happening in the field, and then the body. And, it's not just this like mental of, which I feel like I've been seeing so much the last few years, like, oh, I just want to heal depression, give me some drugs, and it's very like, Western. I keep naming it the Amazon Prime effect, where everybody just wants to
Yes.
order something and have it delivered the next day, and
Yeah, exactly.
and wants it to just be easy. And then, people forget, especially as a facilitator, like, you're potentially taking on, a lot of this energy, and doing, like, to understand, like, what's actually happening to you as a
Yeah.
facilitator, which I think a lot of people leave out. And it's exactly what you just said. It's maybe you're going to learn the hard way, or maybe your ass will get kicked on some level.
Yeah. And I think it's also, when it comes to understanding that, for example, I remember the first images from the studies with depression where people were laying down with the mindfold and a headphone on. And, great, good for one-on-one work, that, like, great. But for me, there's something that is lost there, because there is a lack of understanding what that laying down is actually doing, especially in a group setting. In a group setting, you don't want to lay down. And there's an energetic reason for that. And when you know the medicine work, you know this, it, you know the danger of spillover of energy, where people can get stuck into. There is a reason why people sit up, and you're scolded by your teacher if you don't. Like, there are reasons for that. And then there is also, what I love both is, for example, I very much like to continue to be a student of anything to do with the nervous system and the body, and somatic experiencing is one of the things that I've dove into, because the nervous system is the basics of a lot of in medicine work where you see that. So one of the examples is, you'll see people shaking for an extended amount of time, which you can, a lot of people go to where you're releasing trauma out of the body, because of the shaking. But from an energetic and more traditional point of view, one of the things that it could be, because there are multiple reasons, but I don't want to go too deep into it, is that there is the energy of death around. Right? So when you understand those two, and you come with a perspective of two, you can really cater and support the healing of the individual, because in your intake, what the person is carrying, what type of trauma, you need to be trauma informed in that way. And in the energetic realm, if you understand that the energy of death doesn't need to be something scary. I mean, I have stories about death in that way, but doesn't have to be scary. It can be a transition. It could be seen as, a past one around. It could have been that someone has worked in healthcare and has seen a lot of death, and that has shocked their system. It could be a combination of both. It's a combination of both. And I think a lot of it is lost, like what you shared about the energetics being left out. And that means that you're going to make conclusions without it being holistically informed. And I don't think we should make conclusions as a guide or an ally or facilitator at all. I think you should empower the individual, like with dream work, to make their own, what is your archetypal image, and all of that. But still, there is, skilled healers, they know what they're doing. They are surgeons, and there are many ways to work with. I think psilocybin is a beautiful experience of sharing. There are many, many ways to work with psilocybin. I think it's very generative. It's very open medicine. It says, yeah, sure, here you go. Otherwise it wouldn't be here. But I do think we need to understand that there are not a lot of people in the energy and curanderismo and shamanism and vegetalistas that understand to be an actual surgeon with the medicine. And that part is what I'm missing in teachings. And that part is what I'm missing in the now institutes and schools and academies and everything that's out there. And I think because it's left out, the people will have one way or another a backlash, and they will start to understand that they're missing something. You will feel it, because the type of therapists that are, or counselors that are interested in this work and coming from that direction first, and then come to one of the retreats and experiences this way, they go like, oh wait, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't know this. And it's not to make people feel not ready. It's just about, can you make an informed decision to keep people do no harm? Yeah.
Yeah, that actually, no, this is so beautiful, and I'm so glad you brought this up. And I do believe, my personal hope is that we're all going to be led to that place eventually anyways, because
Yeah.
it's like you're working with this powerful spirit, let's not forget. It's not a drug that you just take and that's that. I mean, was so beyond that. And it's like, well, if you're doing the work and you're building a relationship with this spirit, then it's going to teach you, hopefully this is my prayer. We'll see.
Yeah.
Who
Yes.
knows what will happen in the wild west of psychedelics.
Maybe
but
maybe you and I are completely wrong, and it's a new time and a new era, and all of this we don't need it. That'll be fun.
Then there's that, and I'm like, then there's just like the energy of the planet that I'm like, maybe we won't need any of this. Who knows? But well, that was my next question. Is like, for people that are getting into facilitation or even psychedelic assisted therapy, or people that want to work one-on-one, how does one know when they're really ready to serve, or sit with someone one-on-one? What would you say to them? Because of course someone goes to a weekend long training and then they're like, okay, I'm now taking clients, but what is your take, like, especially if you've supervised people, like what do you tell people about starting to actually work with people?
Yeah. This is such a good question and such a hard question to answer, because who am I to tell anybody when they're ready? Like nobody told me in that way. I just had a teacher that pushed me, and literally the medicine knocked on my door. But I can also see that as a very big way of bypassing, and being, I'm ready because I have 5 requests from people that really want me to give it to them. Is that what you're ready? Is that life telling you you're ready? I don't know. Like I could do 2 Post-its, yes and no on it at the same time. So I do believe it depends on someone's base and background, first and foremost. Do you have a client relationship already? Do you have a minimum of 3 to 4 years of where you've already worked in processes with people? Like, and I mean trauma processes, trauma-informed processes. And this could be from counseling, coaching, somatic. It could be different. That will give you a base to understand what can come up through the body, through the psyche. Then is that what you already have enough? Because might you need something else around? Like if you have only coaching, that's great because you're going into inquiry, and you're helping someone's development, but is that really trauma informed? Maybe you need an add-on in that. Do you have something that understands the energetics? Do you understand where the medicine comes from? Do you understand the history? Have you sat with other people that are further than you? That's another part. So I think all in all, I think it's like if you would look at yourself holistically, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, where are you in those levels? And what would make maybe the best way? I don't know. I've not no rule for that, but maybe it would be the best way of when would you be able to actually be in a process with someone? Would that be 3 years in, 5 years in? If you have the right teacher, they will tell you. You will know, and they might not tell you that directly, but you will know, and you will ask their permission. And, sometimes it takes a very long time. And they said, that you're never ready, and are you ready to hear that? What will you do then? Because I've heard also those, and then people are ambitious and they leave the teacher and do it anyway. And then, fires happen in their ceremony. People get to come in drunk and I don't know what. It's like the signs are there, So I'm hoping to answer your question, but I don't think I have an answer. When it comes to people that I'm mentoring, I have an agreement with them to be radically honest from the get-go. And, and the moment I've up till now, I've never had someone that said, I'm going to do it and I didn't agree with them. But if that would be the case, I would not be their mentor anymore. Right? Like, because then, it's the energetics come back, like in that space. So It's a hard thing to say. When are you really ready? I also believe there is a change in the time right now and the wave of this. And I also believe there is a difference if you're working with ayahuasca, if you're working with psilocybin, if you're working, it depends also on the medicine and what is the history of the medicine. Do you fully understand that? I really think psilocybin is a bit more, lenient. You know, there is more flexibility in that in terms of risk and understanding that space. But yeah, I don't. And how many ceremonies have you experienced? You know, one is not enough.
Yeah. No, this is a great answer.
2 is not enough. 3 is not enough.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say, look, like, you can start out with microdosing with someone. It's like there's a lot of power in very small. Like I know it's our society that wants these big peak experiences, but very often I've had actually, even with ayahuasca, some of my most profound moments with ayahuasca were when I would work with it alone in the jungle and my shaman would give me like a little microdose, and it was the most profound experience ever. And that was not even in an actual ceremony. It was just me, the smallest possible dose. So, don't underestimate the power of even small. And then one thing I always tell people is, look, like, if you can't hold a certain level of trauma informed space or understanding of somatics or energetics, have a resource list of good people that you can send people to.
Yeah.
Like I do that for my own, I'm a business coach. I help people start and grow businesses. But if one of my clients is dealing with something that is beyond my capacity or beyond the scope of the work, I have a whole list of like, here are my somatic therapists that I know personally that I've worked with. Here are some healers that I know are great. Here's some energy workers that I trust. So I can hand them this list and say like, okay, you need support that is beyond my capacity, and go call one of them, So that's another thing, is like to really have a network of good support where you can actually tell people like, look, and I agree, like radical honesty, like you got to be honest with yourself, with the clients, with your teacher. And I always say, like, you have to ask yourself, like, is this really coming from truth or ego? Is this just my ego that wants to get busy and whatever it is, make money or whatever people are after? Or is it really like you're truly feeling ready to help people on this journey? But we'll see.
I have a friend who, she's trained in the Shipibo tradition, and we've created a beautiful protocol for women-only retreat. And we always have these deep conversations with each other because I'm a lot more inclusive, and she comes from a deep Shipibo tradition training, and she's not inclusive at all. Like I'm about, build stages, put people on it, let's empower, let's go, no. And she's like, no. Look at this medicine is crooked. This is with this. This is with this. These people are not ready. I'm not teaching any. Like I don't want to be a teacher because this is, and that's the other part of it. Like we all hold this slightly different perspective in this way. One of the things I would love to add to this conversation is that the one thing that I've come to understand deeper is you have to understand yourself. And what do I mean with that is, what type of projections do you get? Because do you really want to save people? Are you the wounded healer that wants to step in? Because I think all of us are in part in this work are in a way, one way or another. Do you understand that part? What is the projection? Whose love did you crave most growing up? What is that type? What type of clients are coming to you? What does that say about that love that you craved most? Do you understand these parts? Because the moment you fully understand those projections, and also like with the example of the dosing, giving too much dose, what I've seen with a lot of men, also in psilocybin ceremonies when I assisted and not led, was that people were receiving extremely high doses, where I went like, what is this with this over giving? And then I understood what their programming inside is. I'm not enough. Therefore, what I bring isn't enough to the table. And it isn't about us as facilitators, but the medicine is there, so if you're already bringing in this frequency that what you carry, you're not enough, that's the frequency that you're bringing in the container. in that womb-like space. So that's the teaching that you will get and the group will get. So people with, let's say, 8 to 10 grams of mushrooms, or in truffles, 60 grams of truffles, which is ridiculously high, and I've seen it happen, where people don't have an experience. Like nothing. And I go like, yeah, of course. Like, and so the medicine starts speaking to you in a different way. I was like, hello, wake up. I'm not going to work right now with you, with this. So it's like, are you able to understand your own programming to the core? And it doesn't mean that you're not triggered or activated by things. Of course we are, like we all have those things, but do you understand where that's coming from? And are you able to hold the container without it making about you in that container? Can you then take it outside and deal with it?
That's
like
exactly
I think that's where I've seen a lot of people also in the therapeutic realm coming in and volunteering 1 or 2 times and being absolutely triggered in their worth because I have this and this training and I should be holding a workshop, or I should be holding an element of this retreat. And then they don't. And then they get triggered in their worth and they can't even sit still in ceremony.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so funny. I just recorded an episode about this and mentioning where I spoke about the core wounds that are really running you, and it's like, I'm constantly reminding my clients that none of this is actually about you, like the whole coaching, healing, transformational industry. Of course, it is the wounded healer. It is like built on this notion of like, well, I went through this and now I'm able to help people. But if you don't have your core wounds in check, you're going to be operating from this place that is actually not truly in service. And it's operating from your own wounding, which I've seen so much out there in this industry that I've been in, I've been around for years, where I'm like, that coach is just like, her whole entire way of being is her wounding, and it's, we are human. This is part of it, but it's like the more you can have this in check, it's exactly what you said, like the cleaner the energy is going to be around it. And to know like, okay, I'm truly just coming from a place of service, and here are my wounds. And at least I have an awareness of what's running behind the scenes versus projecting it onto a whole group of people, which I'm sure you have. I've been in ceremony space with people who it changed the whole entire night, where like they're going through, the facilitator was going through something, and it's like the whole energy changed, and it was like, wow, this whole night was his projection. It's amazing. And it's not clean, and that's why I'm super selective about who I sit in ceremonies with and who I work with, because it's like, if not, it's exactly what you said, like the medicine won't work, or something else will be projected, or you'll take on somebody else's stuff, or whatever it is. And it's not the true place of service, of healing. And so I think this is where it becomes very important. Like, do your own inner process, keep it in check, have a supervisor, have someone guiding you and helping you through it, so that you are actually in service to those that want to work with you. So this is amazing. So Natasja, we only have a few minutes left. Can you tell people, where to find you? What is it that you have going on? I know you've mentioned some retreats. What do you offer? Tell people about what's happening with you in the next year.
Yeah. So, well, this next year we have, of course, retreats in the Netherlands, and then we have retreats in Portugal. Those are my 2 favorite countries because I'm half Portuguese, half Dutch. I have the gift of both worlds. So we have in-person experiences there, and we focus very much on preparation and integration. We have a full program around with a community platform. And so that's, of course, ongoing, and that will be ongoing even to next year. And I just opened up the doors again for a new mentorship. So for one-on-one work with me, and this is mostly for people, I have leaders that have nothing to do in the psychedelic space as well, that work with me, but are in a exploration of themselves, and most of the time I call those leaders going from brain to heart, vice versa. So that's where I'm focused. And then, but the majority is counselors, therapists, and coaches and healers that, that understand the work that I've done, or, and want to have someone around. So that's definitely on the plan and continued. And, Yes, and some beautiful things are evolving in the next 2 years, and some beautiful collaborations. And I'm always very mindful what to already announce where, but people can definitely just look at the website and subscribe to newsletters and all of that. But that's it for now, for today, and that's plenty already. That's
For
plenty
now.
already.
Yes.
For now, yeah.
Well, we'll have all your links right here in the show notes. And of course,
Yeah.
when you do come up with something new or a new collaboration, just share it with
Yeah.
me and I'll share it with everybody else. And
Yes,
Yes.
there's some beautiful things coming out, and yes, some amazing things, and also new venues here in the Netherlands that are really about transformation and healing that we're collaborating with. So it's quite a lot of things. So I'm super excited.
So good. I got to make it out to Portugal. It's one of my favorite places in the world.
Yes, you have to. Well, thank you so much as well, Beth.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your work and your voice in this field. And, there's a lot of people that admire you. I keep on hearing from you from different angles. So it was lovely to be here for your audience as well.
Thank you. And likewise for you as well. I'm so glad we finally got to connect and do this interview and share your beautiful medicine with the world. Thank you so much, Natasja.
Thank you.